What's up, everybody? This is A7X Fan Ben. Welcome back to the Pirates CSG podcast. This is the next part of the interview with the amazing game designer Mike Mulvihill, and you can find all the resources and whatnot that we talked about in the description below. And please consider also checking out the eBay affiliate link in the description to help support my content and everything I do to try to keep this game alive. Thanks for listening, and let's get to the episode.
We'll get to the next question. I know this one is pretty specific to maybe the art team, and I can still ask Shane or Kian about it. I don't know what happened with the Caribbean set ship artwork. A few of them. This is not a bash. We're just curious. The community is just curious. I've been curious about this for years about HMS Endeavor and HMS Dauntless and a few other ships from the Caribbean set. They look like remarkably different than how they appeared in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Like the Endeavor has like these beat up sails. I understand if it's after the Black Pearl and Flying Dutchman like ravaged her, but she has only like one gun deck versus three, things like that. Then the Dauntless has like this blue stripe through the sails, but it's kind of curious.
I don't know.
But yeah, no worries. Yeah, I can ask.
There are a couple. So, I mean, here's the thing that you need to understand about how this works. And that is, that may not have been us. That may have very much been Disney.
Oh. Yeah.
Okay. And that they could be because some of the sailing ships that they used are actual real ships that they used. And those ships are owned by people. Yeah. And so that we don't have to, so Disney doesn't have to pay royalties to this company that owns this ship. They told us to make the ship look different.
Okay.
Now, I can't remember in this specific case, but I work with Disney every day, and that could be very much the case.
Yeah.
So,
that is wild.
So it's not so much a and I'm telling you this as I'm not as a person who's literally not remembering.
Yeah.
But we would not have taken liberties with Disney property unless we were asked to by Disney.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it's also the reason too why some of the I thought you were going to ask about the character art, not the ship art, which is funny, because in some cases, if it was a person that Disney did not have a likeness rights with or had a generic rights with, we could use the shot from the film, a movie shot. Yeah. But if it was somebody that they did have likeness rights with, they had to get approved. That person also had to approve it. And so a way to mitigate that, if you will, is to do a paint over of them. So on some of the characters that look way more painted than photoed, it's because it was, again, we were told you should probably, if you want to get this approved, do a painting likeness. It's a lot easier than do a photo likeness, which is a lot harder.
Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, that's really
so. But that's all licensed work, and I would not be able to tell you at this day and age what license what license Wizkids had to do this film.
Yeah. Yeah,
especially with the idea too that when we were doing this set, a fourth film hadn't been announced.
True.
So for all practical purposes, under Disney's August, it was probably the license was over, and so that also triggers a whole set of different rules and regulations. So I don't know. I'm not gonna say I don't make it sound like I'm trying to defend the art team or justify what an artist may have done. I'm just trying to tell you that from a IP standpoint, there are a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's really fascinating because HMS Interceptor in the set was also kind of represented strangely. She has like multiple gun decks, whereas in the movie she has one. But even weirder because I was just on the ship, the Lady Washington that portrayed the ship in the movie. I just went on like a day sail with her. I had been on board that ship the day we met in August. So that's really wild to hear about how like maybe the owner of that ship, the real life owner, may have been part of the reason that the ship was represented differently in the set. Wow. Cool. And then this kind of ties in the next question. Did you consider making some of the pirates in the Pirates of the Caribbean set originate from the Cursed faction instead, such as Davy Jones?
We didn't have one at that time. We didn't think of the Cursed faction until.
Okay.
Oh wait, no, is that in that Davy Jones set?
Yeah, Davy Jones' Curse was the 6th set, so it came out before.
Oh,
the
right.
Caribbean set.
I was thinking of the one that came out way later.
Yeah.
Did we have like regular like make now we like do like 2 different versions of Will, for instance, or something like that?
There's different abilities, but they're still both pirate faction. Yeah.
Here. So the again.
I think some fans just wanted like Davy Jones to be cursed instead of pirate, and then same for like the undead crew or like the skeletal crew, stuff like that. I don't know if Disney overrid that or what, because it's only that set only has 2 factions, English and pirates, but it could have included the cursed. I think would have made sense, and then even like Mistress Ching would have been like Jade Rebellion from like the faction from South China Seas. I mean, it makes some sense to make it
In the
pirate.
Davy Jones curse in the Davy Jones set?
So, like Captain Davy Jones is pirate instead of cursed in the Caribbean set. Like the movie version of Jones, um, is pirate, but it still feels like he should be cursed, especially because he's like an antagonist to the pirates in the movie. So it was just kind of an interesting like flavor decision that some people theorized that it was. Sent a screenshot of Jones, Captain Davy Jones, but some people theorized that they did that because if they hadn't done it, the curse would be really weak in that set. Like they'd only have like 10 or 15 game pieces, but they could have filled it out a bit more. So
Okay, you're confusing me in 2 things. You keep
yeah,
saying they, and I'm they.
yeah.
So
That
so
or
so
Disney.
I'm confused when you say they because I'm like, who are you talking about?
It could be Disney if they like overrode your choices or whatever, like your original ideas for the set, and then they said no. I'm just not sure if that happened or not.
Yeah, I'm looking at your Davy Jones. Oh, I got the Davy Jones list right here.
It's fine if the details are lost to time.
I
Was
don't
curious.
I don't recall.
Yeah.
My understanding was that I remember adding the curse characters at a
Hmm.
later time again to make that um IP style thing.
Yeah.
So the Davy Jones. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong set. That's why. They didn't have anybody cursed in the movie, so we couldn't use it. Then we had to use pirate. I do remember that everybody was either a pirate or British in the movie. It kind of stinks. If we would have waited the 4th movie, we would be able to get the Spanish in there. But what are you gonna do?
Hmm.
Or,
Yeah.
but yeah, there was no cursed in that set. No one was listed as cursed. When we did our own version, the Davy Jones set, then we were able to add the cursed team.
Okay. Yeah, so we don't
That
know
was
if it
it.
was Disney or something else that played a role.
I don't remember. They would
Yeah.
never, most likely, never. I mean, I don't know. Back then, they may have allowed it, but
Yeah.
they didn't see them as 2 different factions. The
Okay.
pirates were the pirates, and the English were the English, and that was it.
Interesting. Wow. Yeah, that's kind of weird. Okay. Cool. And then did you happen to be involved on any of the legal or IP discussions on the Pirates of the Caribbean set beyond that meeting with Michael Eisner and stuff like that?
On the IP part, no. I mean, like I said, I told you that basically he said that's the direction, and then we started to try to move in that direction, therefore creating, like I said, like the cursed faction then came out of that. Like, basically when doing like IP generation like this, we had to make the calls that you basically stated earlier, which is, okay, we need to cut as many historical people out because we don't know what baggage they hold and tie us down to somebody else's storyline. No one wants to do, oh, you know what, Captain Morgan is going to be in our IP, and then somebody comes out with a Captain Morgan movie because we can't own him, you know.
Yeah.
So it's IP is funny because it's all about what you can own for as long as possible. And so therefore then things like saying, hey, well, we take Davy Jones and we can make him a cursed guy in our set because he's evil. That's a different Davy Jones in theory than Disney's Davy Jones. And in reality, when it's all said and done, we're both based on a fable. So, you know, we could as long as ours was totally different, we can do it. And he's not technically real, like Captain Morgan would have been real. You can't really own a real guy. And so the biggest discussions were what shifts would we make to make this reality. And then we had a world of pirates that was historically set in the sense that we created a world, like I said, a world of pirates. So we had that. That was something nobody else had. Nobody else had the factions that we had mixing with the factions from around the world, and then now mixing with this occult faction, and you know the various sea monsters and that kind of stuff. So we were able to create quickly a base, but we only had a base. We didn't have tendrils that would say, okay, well, what direction should we go in? So when we said, well, we could take this whole cursed idea, because this is where, as you said eloquently earlier, you know, things were going in that direction. Now maybe we can make new characters and new storylines based off these. We can pull in our own characters from earlier sets, like Jack Hawkins and a couple of other characters, and start to use them in new interesting ways, you know, and do that kind of stuff. But that we were at the, you know, first salvos of that. We did not do that. I don't know any. There was no legal anything when in the case of creating an IP, other than what we were asked to do was try to create one and to remember certain criterion, like no, you know, like reduce the amount of historical characters. We could make up a guy. We could call him Captain Borgen and do everything that Captain Morgan does, but we're not. We can literally say he's not Captain Morgan. He's Captain Morgan, and he does these things within our universe, and get away with it.
Yeah.
But we hadn't even got that far. We got to like, how do we have a ground zero? Where should we build our ground zero on? Again, like you said, that the curse thing was becoming very popular. This kind of you know, what world are we between the living and the dead and the whole 9 yards, lost and all kinds of stuff. And so we were like, okay, well, that seems, let's double down on that, and let's do some places that don't exist in the physical geography, so that we own some places, you know, as well as the sea. You know, we can always call it the sea. You know, you'll note that in Pirates of the Caribbean, they never say the word Caribbean. They never say things. They talk about things in grand, you know, South Atlantic, the island, you know, the islands all have made up names. There's no, you know, Isle of Death. There's no, you know, Skull of this. You know, those are all lore names that Disney made up, so they don't have to worry about placing it anywhere real, you know. And so that was the next step for us, was let's make up some new things. Let's make up some characters for all of our factions that we can use as both the hero and villain, if you will, of those factions, the good guy and the bad guy. Just because they're in the same faction, they can have totally different mindsets. And you know, that was real early. At that point, I was working on you know, that was the real early process. I have no idea if they even followed up with it. It's looking at the names of the sets after us, it sounds like they were going to double down on it, because they had Savage Shores, and that was, so they were looking as if they were trying to create that as well and continue that thought process. But I don't know, because I was not a part of it after that.
Yeah, makes sense. Awesome. Was anyone from Disney involved in the game piece creation and design elements of the Pirates of the Caribbean set? Like, did somebody oversee it?
Disney does not do that.
Yeah.
They approve what you did. They don't make what you do. That's the
Hmm.
reason they hired you.
Yep.
So what I would do is I went through the films. Oh my god, I watched the film. So it's what I do every day. I just watch film of stuff over and over, same stuff over and over. I picked out all the characters. What the biggest problem with that one was because it was only two sets of characters. We needed a lot of like, and we couldn't do like Canyoneer, or those things. We can
Yeah.
name somebody, we can give somebody that title or that power, but we couldn't just do our own generic artwork. So I had to find characters. That was the hardest part. I remember I
Yeah.
ended up trying to figure out how to get the characters, the two. So, what's his name? The Chow Yun Fat or
Oh, Sao
uh,
Feng.
Sao Feng.
Yep.
He's got the two girls.
Yep.
Two pirate girls that are in his movie. I'm looking for see if I can find their name in
Yeah.
the list.
Leon and Park should be the two.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So there's no images of them. So I had to take the picture from I had to like this is
Screenshot.
really old school. I had to freeze the film on my computer and kept doing it back and forth so I can get one that wasn't all like half full of movement,
Yeah,
and then
pixelated.
cut it like screen cut on my computer, and then put it in a thing and go, I hope they know who this is, and I put the name and where they're in, and the like a lot of times if I took an image directly from the movie, I'd put the timestamp on it as well. And so, but it was like, knock on wood that they'll take this, and the fact that they allowed us to put both of them in there it just made us the math easier for crew. I don't think they have any powers per se, but it was they don't have any personality, I guess I should say. So
Yeah. Yeah. They're not like the best, not some of the better crew or anything. So interesting. That's really cool. Moving on to the Rise of the Fiends set. This one might be kind of esoteric, but I don't know if you know what happened to some of the game pieces that fell out of the end of that set. They were like mega card, like the double card, some of the bigger ships or some of the sea creatures and stuff like that. And then some of them appeared in later sets, but Ocho Brazo was one. It was like an octopus kraken that never appeared in a later set. So I'm not sure if I know you were on the way out. It was kids at that point. I don't know if you know what happened to some of those
I don't.
weird
I
ships.
actually don't. I would have said, I think my guess was, and I don't feel like I'm blowing smoke here and making it sound like I'm huge and everybody, but I left I thought my feeling was I did Rise of the Fiends. I may have done the first full pass of it.
Hmm.
And then, like I said, a lot of times after the fact, marketing will come in and want stuff. And my feeling would be those ships may have been part of a marketing plan that now that after I left and Kelly was taking over, and they just removed them because the marketing team couldn't figure out how to get it all done
Yeah.
without somebody who had been running the ship, so to speak, all that time. But that's just me guessing at this point. I don't have any sense for it. Anything that would have been a big ship like that or a larger size thing would have been outside like the booster pack.
Yep.
I know at one point, and I don't know if it was this set, but it may have been. It was more the Star Wars set, Star Wars pocket model game that I worked on like in my last days there. They decided to go with the larger styrene, like the big ship styrene that we did, a little bit bigger. Like almost like a 2x2 card size, I think,
Yeah.
because they can get a bunch more done on one print, and they didn't have the mandate that it had to be playable out of a pack.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of talk about other stuff we can do with that size. And I remember that discussions is like I said, because that was discussions on the Star Wars stuff. And so my guess is that was going to be may have been rolled into every set after that, but I don't recall at the end of Rise of Fiends if I had done it. Like I don't remember if I was even. I have complete sets of Rise of Fiends, which leads me to believe I was there when it came out.
Yeah.
But it may have been they just gifted those to me because I did the work on it. But I don't
Yeah.
I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I actually don't have an answer to that at all. Like I know Kelly did Fire and Steel because that's the one they actually had me do some writing and review, like almost like a pass on.
Yeah.
She did. She hired me to do that, and I was not there. But yeah, Rise of Fiends, I don't recall why anything would have been removed from it, other than from a marketing standpoint. Like
Yeah.
they just didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah, no worries. Another question, couple more questions from towards the end of your time there. Do you know
No,
what
no.
inspired the flotillas, the switchblades, scorpions, and other similar Pokéships, as the community knows them?
Yes, yes. So in the two, I think the scorpion's the one that's got the axe that comes down and
Yep,
stabs you and then holds you in place,
yep,
right?
yep.
And is there one too? I assume the is there one with the pincer ones? Did that come in Fire and
Yeah,
Steel?
there's a switchblade. That one's from Fire and Steel.
Yeah.
Um,
So both of those come. You can thank your Greeks for both of those,
okay.
uh, because that's where I started to do research into ships that were like, I don't want to say prophesized, but like concepted and found in like Da Vinci documents
Yes, yes.
and Greek art and stuff like that, because they were real enough to get to a certain point, but not they never were actually made. They were just
Yeah,
literally concepted by people who lived on or near the water and what they can do to screw other humans up, because that's what humans do best. And so that's where those concepts came from. I couldn't believe that we can get the scorpion to work,
yeah,
because I just, again, it was a thing where Ethan's doing uh you know styrene modeling, and I'm just like, can you get this to work? And the fact that was the one that I remember when it came in, I was like, this is the coolest day of my life. I could never believe that we would have been able to pull something like this off. Something that's got a little moving part and when people played with that ship, dude, in the play testing, and just the fact that when you got close enough and you slam that, you snap well, it doesn't snap, it just slides over.
yeah. The
But
blade.
just the fact that you think it snaps and you go crash, people just went ballistic and stuff like that. And that's the kind of stuff, just so you understand, that's the kind of stuff that when you're trying to create the IP, that would be the default type things that you're looking for. Stuff that doesn't exist someplace that you can say, hey, we made the Scorpion ship in our game. And now when we go and try to sell this to Disney or Eisner or somebody else, we have this really cool, like over the top ship. It's got sailing ships in it, but it's also got these cool, wacky, weird ships. That's where the different sea monster ideas came from. It's where the giant crab came from. It was like where the switchblade came from. That one I never actually saw. I was not there to see that. Oh no, that's in Fire and Steel as well.
Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, I that one also I think I saw before I left.
yep.
No, Fire and Steel I didn't see. I think but I had worked on some of the early concepting for it. I don't think I ever saw it in done by Ethan, but it was another one. I think when we were doing Rise of Fiends and Fire and Steel, we were trying to figure out which one we can get to work first, and we got Rise of the Fiend or the Scorpion to work first.
Nice, nice. Do you know if you still have that Da Vinci drawing? Because I was trying to find something online a few months ago of the
Let's
scorpion, I
see.
think, and
I don't know
I
if
couldn't
it's Da
find it.
Vinci or if it's just some Greek.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was. I thought I did see a Leonardo da Vinci sketch from some years ago. I saw something online, but I couldn't re-find it. But anyway, for the flotillas, was that kind of like a mobile fort type of idea?
Um,
I mean, that's kind of like how they function in a way. I just didn't know if you had some other, or like a gun barge type concept, maybe.
um, let's see. Funny, I didn't know that spike is now a term for a a launchable missile.
Oh, okay.
Um, the flotillas, I don't remember why that was something we thought was pretty cool with the um
Hmm.
I remember them in concept.
Yeah.
And I think this came from uh I think just this came from some way to do uh like those kind of I think this came from comic books, to be honest with you. Just something that like a villain would have that would come out and just be, guns in the water kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
Interesting.
I do remember talking to people about this, and I remember may have actually come again in one of those group thinks of stuff that we've not done, or maybe we've heard feedback on that, like there needed to be something. I don't remember why this exists.
Yeah,
Here's
that's
a
fine.
crazy thing. I look at this and I see a video game, and I don't remember why.
Yeah,
I'm
that's fine. No worries. Um, the next one might get a little into a legal gray area, but I was curious about the settlement with Wizards of the Coast when they came out with that patent and it got approved in 2007. It talks about how there was a licensing agreement where WizKids could continue to make the game, and it's curious because the patent talks about movable parts of like a game piece, and I noticed that Rise of the Fiends came out in 2008 after the settlement was reached. I didn't know if that patent filing was part of the reason that ships with movable parts were not implemented earlier in the game, or or if it was just kind of random chance that it happened with that timing. Because once Rise of the Fiends came out, the licensing agreement evidently must have been in place. So then, WizKids theoretically, you could make the ships with movable parts, as long as obviously Wizards of the Coast got, I don't know if it was a royalty or some kind of licensing fee or whatever it was. But I was just curious about the timing of that, if it was just random or if it did partly happen because of that settlement.
all right. Just so everybody who listens understands where I'm coming from and what I understand.
Hmm.
I was deposed twice, once by our lawyers and once by Wizards of the Coast lawyers. And in both times, my lawyer told me, I don't understand why they're doing this, because the answers that you gave are not the answers that were put in the lawsuit. And their lawyer said, why are you here?
Hmm.
So I don't have an answer on what thing happened after I was involved after any of that. I had never heard of a settlement. I assumed that it just went away, or we paid it off, or the parties agreed to do something. So I have no information on the legal anything of anything. The bottom line is, based on that description of what a movable game is, technically removing the masts would be movable, and
Yeah,
so that was since day one.
true.
The biggest thing is that their my understanding, and again, lawyers are great at doing things and convincing their parties to either adapt, change, or modify parts of a lawsuit to meet the goal of winning the lawsuit, or at least making money off whatever lawsuit it is. Not disparaging lawyers, it's just that's their job. And my understanding was that I did nothing to acquiesce or make any game design decision based on any legal document out there.
Nice.
If decisions were made later, that's a whole different thing. I came up with the idea of the Scorpion because, again, I had seen this in the in a some ancient pictures
Yeah,
of ships
nice.
that had different stuff.
Hmm.
I did not think we can even make it physically, so it was not like something that we've been holding on to until it came done. It was literally uh, a again, to try to create our IP, a way to do ships that are fantastical, if you will, and therefore fit this new kind of IP fantasy direction that we were going in, but had a kind of a gut feel of reality, because again, that was the other part of the IP we were going for.
Yeah.
So I got to tell you, I don't like speaking about that because I don't know it. I have a personal opinions on it. My end of Wizkids was not great, and so therefore there's a lot of like emotion clouded in that.
Yeah.
But no one told me I couldn't do anything ever.
Yeah.
I just want you to know, and no
Nice.
one told me certain things were banned.
Yeah.
So the bottom line was, when it came time to find ships that were not historically accurate of a of a uh, of a period or a tribe, if you will.
Yeah.
I just started looking at like cool ass fantastic ships from history,
Yeah.
and that's what I got it. And I'm trying to find it now because there was this like black and white drawing of a bunch of ships, and I can't. I'm doing it now, but I'm not. The internet is very different.
Yeah.
And the fact that the Greeks acquired spike missiles is killing my search engine right now, because right now I'm getting is NATO and spike missiles all over the place, so that's
Yeah.
not helping my search. But I've talked to you about where I was mentally and with that situation offline, and I don't want to bring it up and start talking, because there's going to be people who know way more. There's going to be people who know secret information that they're assuming was public information, but nobody told me. But the bottom line is, no one ever stopped me from doing anything. I never stopped giving 100% to this. I have no idea that there was any lawsuit settlement or anything like that.
Nice.
The first I heard of that was when you told me.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
and you heard my reaction when you told me. I don't know, because I just assumed when I left, it was kind of just a thing that just happened. I mean, I left to work at another company that I was burnt out at Wizkids. I was not happy there, and I was not being heard, and that's just all on me and the people that I was working with. To be honest with you, I had no idea why the game ended. No one told me that part. I had no idea why, in theory, if they're bringing it back. I do know why, because no games die. And it's a good game, and it's a solid game, and it's fun. So on all that, fans, if they are bringing it back, thumbs up, have fun, go out there and buy it and play it, and always remember that I won't get any royalties from it, but I will appreciate you always bringing my name up. That would be cool. But the bottom line is, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what that was, but to answer your core question, no, nothing ever said now I can do moving parts. I mean, technically, removing a mast was considered a moving part.
True.
Based on that.
Yeah.
I actually want to know one question from the fans, so I'd be really great, Ben, if you can figure this out. Do they put their flags on the top of their ship facing forward as if they're moving, or facing back if the wind is blowing?
Yep. I mean,
that's
I do mine forward.
That's my question.
Yeah. People definitely do it. Yeah, that can be your question of the day for the podcast. Yeah, love it. Yeah, I definitely do mine forward. I used to do them backward back in the day, but then I was like, I mean, the ship's got to be going forward, so we want the wind. You want the wind at your back,
right.
So yep.
I just whenever somebody does it, this is so funny. I didn't do it when we were playing. I was going to, but we had so much else going on. I didn't want to do it because we had other people who may not have been in on it. But every time somebody plays and they put their thing on, I go, you put it on wrong.
Yeah.
And so no matter what way they put it on, I tell them they put it on wrong.
Yeah. Some people people get kind of aggravated about it sometimes. They're like, no, like it could still be blowing that way. It's like kind of, but like the default would still be forward. So unless you want your ship to go in the wrong direction or be calmed. So anyway, next question you mostly already answered about play testing. But the last one still is kind of interesting. Did any community-centric playtesting initiatives occur where feedback was solicited from the broader player base? I know it was mostly more private, but I was just curious if there was more of a public outreach at some point with playtesting.
There never was. We never got to that point. Wizkids had some issues with that, but we had not done like me going to, like, let's say Gen Con and saying, I have the new set here, I'm just going to take people's opinions all day. We never got to that point. One, just so people understand also the cadence of things, Gen Con was always a release date. So no matter what we did, we always had to have a new product at Gen Con. So I didn't have a product to test at Gen Con every year. So from a big place where all the community would be, they were getting the newest product, and I did not have the next product lined up to do. Yeah. That's number one. Number two, we never really did that. We try to do it. The weird thing about play testing is that when you play test for me, I like to talk to you, not because I like, gives you the big thumbs, the Greek thumbs or the Roman thumbs up, thumbs down, and then your head gets cut off. No, it's more that I want to understand. I want you to understand the game I'm designing, and then I want to be able to understand the way you play a game. And I say that basically now that everybody's going to hear like the big 3 mandates for me. If you come in and say you need to make this 12, mass ship that 40, that's 85 points or something like that. I'm like, I that's not helpful. You're not play testing now. Now you're just making stuff up because I need you to test the thing I'm showing you because it's already addressed issue 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 that the company wants to achieve. And then from a design standpoint, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have these new ships ideas, these new things. Do these work? Are they good? Are they fun? The schooner idea. Does this work? Is this cool? Is this fun? I need those kind of answers. So I need you to know where I'm coming from, and then I need to know where you're going to do stuff. So and so when you do the big mass test, what you end up getting is basically like a friend of mine calls it the scale of 1 to 10. I can't really understand where you're coming from because I don't know you. But if you say this game is a 10, then I'm going to go, okay, well, I don't know who this guy is, but they really like the game. If you say it's 1, I'm going to go, I don't know who this person is, but they really don't like this game. But I don't know the whys. I don't know all the whys. I don't know what's wrong. Maybe you don't like the game because you hate playing a boardless game. Maybe you don't like measuring. Those are things I can't change at this point. The game's 7 in or 6 in or whatever it is. Maybe at the very beginning we could have done more of a market test on that, which we did. I was doing baseball at the same time, so we were doing a lot of market research with baseball, and I would bring Pirates along for people to play, and then got the fact that people really love Pirates, and they were all white ships, and we were just doing movement and treasure gathering, and I think I had written in like a marker the ship's attacks, and so we got sense of the play and that it was meeting those initial criteria that Jordan had set down. But after that, like long term, like we were not at that place. Really, that would have been almost the next step. Not so much giant mass testing, but a wider test, because now we're talking about we need to test not just the game, but does this fit in do you know this world? Do you understand what's happening in this world? Because that's what an IP is. IP is really just the world.
Yeah.
And so maybe we would have moved in that direction, but that's a bigger step than even Wizkids was prepared to do on any game. I mean, we never did that for the Clicks games, and now I have no idea how they test any of this stuff at Wizkids now. But even at Ravensburger, where I'm at now, that's a tough thing. One, in my case, I deal with IP, so I can't do that type of testing at all.
Yeah.
But my partner Shannon, she does a lot of testing with because she does a lot, she's our kid game expert, so she does a lot of that kind of testing where it's like, okay, I'm going to bring 6 ideas to you, just let's play them with kids, and as she says, there's really just a really hardcore dynamic of, do they cry, do they laugh, do they walk out of the room bored? Because that's really that's what she's looking for. So again, that's that scale. That's in her case, it's just a 1, 2, 3 scale. But and that's all she's getting from that. She's not getting deep game mechanics. She's not getting immersion. She's not getting all that stuff. And that tends to happen. The bigger their playtest crowd is, the less you get the specifics of the things you're looking for. But if you're a dedicated crowd, so let's say I was doing a new Pirates of the Caribbean or a Pirates collectible model game, then I talk to you guys, your group, the people that are playing it now, to say, where does this fit on the scale? Then it's a very different set of testers, a very different set of questions, to be honest, rather than just playing the game. What abilities are lacking? What do we need to do? Where do we need to go from here? All that kind of stuff. It's play testing is not like people to go play testing and they just think it's this big thing. And it's very different than computer games. Board games have I'm sitting in your living room on your kitchen table with you and your family or your best friends, and I'm expecting you to dedicate X hours to my event or my product that you just opened up. I better make sure that story pops out of the box, that you're immersed in the gameplay, and that it's going to be everything from your, brand new girlfriend to grandma in some cases. I have to be able to do all that kind of stuff. So playtesting takes on a whole different set of priorities there. Doing Disney playtesting, whole different set of priorities.
Yeah.
But we never got that. We never honed that distinction down at WizKids. That's one of the things that I've actually learned well past that, is that it's not just showing, Ben, here's my spreadsheet, tell me what you think the numbers look like. There's a whole other part of play testing that I was literally ignorant of until I guess you can in fact teach old dogs new tricks, because I learned it much later than in the early processes. So no, to answer your question, we never got there. Would we have liked to? Now I would love to use the stuff I now know back then, because I think my games would have even been better and tighter and more interesting. But that's part of growing and learning. And WizKids learned as well. I mean, they went and created a whole board game division, which uses a whole different type of play testing. I don't have any idea how they would test this or design this or anything, so I'm not speaking for them now. But when I was at WizKids, we did not do this. It was not even in our radar. It was not a thing that we looked at.
Yeah, cool. Then next one is similar topic. Did playtesting volume vary across the different sets that were released?
It got better and bigger.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, the bottom line is that again, like many things, the sorry. Like many things, you don't start off knowing what you don't have until you need it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I was doing HeroClix, we had a handful of people we sent all the spreadsheets out to, so that they can play, because that game was numbers and dials. So you could take a quarter and put it on the table as long as you had your Excel spreadsheet on, and then you did their movement. You can move people, and then you can say, okay, here's where I am on the dial on your spreadsheet, and then you can play test that way. Pirates, I assumed, would use the same model, and I sent the first ones out, and people are like, how do I even do this? This is probably part of Spanish Main, That's when I started to go, okay, we need to have these little white ships. I need to write these things on them. I need to send. It became a game that needed a physical testing element, as well as a physical testing that we had to provide. We couldn't just tell somebody, use a quarter, put it on your grid base, and then do things. We needed a little bit more. There was more movement in the game. It was more nuanced movement in the game. It also had it wasn't a you're 3 squares away, I can hit you. It was, how far are you based on the size of a credit card, And so, we ended up having to do a lot of stuff like that until product came out. Once people had product, your testing can go much higher, because you have a ship. You have a useless 2-masted ship that you have 30 of, or 30 is way too many, but you have 10 of that you don't mind putting a piece of tape on to say, okay, this ship now does this, and he's got a new piece of tape over the ability that says he can do this. So all of a sudden now your testing is not just random people looking at a spreadsheet. We had an internal office testing constantly. That would have been people from all the divisions, so marketing and game design. I had a partner at besides Kelly, who was, I think, our play testing lead, and Tony and brand management, and then Jordan would pop in all the time and stuff like that. But I also had basically my partner besides Seth was a guy named Matt Robinson, and he was really he had a really good sense of play balance. He was a real like you could tell right away this isn't working right,
Wow.
And so he would play stuff for me as well, and we all played, and I played more testing than I did like regular games, and then we would send it out to the people who were remote. I had a handful of people. Unfortunately, I can't remember their names. I just tried to look them up, and we did not credit play testing, which bothers me a lot at WizKids, because I try to credit everybody that I can. So Yeah, but as the games went on, then all of a sudden, I'm busier and busier, so I'm doing less of the hands-on testing. I'm getting feedback, I'm getting reports.
Okay.
As other people are doing stuff, I'm not seeing it. And then as the remote world became easier to navigate, I'm finding more, and I was finding more and more people at different things. I'd meet somebody at a show, I'd meet somebody online, and they would say, "Hey, Mike, I'd love to do this," and then I would try to vet them as I could, so they understood. Hey, here are the rules and regulations. Don't tell me I need a 40-point chip because I'm going to tell you no. you know, but I need you to look at this stuff. They were not front end testers, meaning they weren't testing ideology or concept. They were mechanics testers, what I call the mechanics
Yeah.
testing path. They were looking at mechanics. They were telling me that's where I would see like a lot of stuff like this ship already exists in the game. Are you sure you want two of them? And I'm like, oh, does it what faction? And then, oh, it exists for pirates. Okay, well, I'll take a pirate ship and make it a British ship, and I'll take a British ship and I'll just change the flag, maybe change the point value. Does this work in that setup? Maybe not. Maybe I need to change the ability. Maybe I need to remake the whole piece. So it was much more of a they were much more on the mechanic end, if you will, than on the look and feel and fun end of things, if you will, I guess.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, that makes a lot
Um,
of sense.
but yeah, as the game went out, more and more ships were part of that. So
Okay. Interesting. Do you know if the Pirates of the Caribbean set got play tested less by any chance? This is not a
I,
bash or anything. The community over time has noticed there's like some overpowered game pieces in that set. That it might be something that was discovered like post 2010 though. So
my guess would be um, probably because, well, you would sign an NDA with Wizkids at any time because you're seeing secret pre-released information.
yeah.
Disney, now that I work with them all the time, has an even higher standard of stuff. So we actually,
Mm,
even if you signed an NDA with the company, I need you to sign an NDA. Like if you signed a regular Ravensburger NDA, I need a second NDA and I have to contract you to play test for me. I can't just give you stuff because Disney needs to have all the legal elements signed. So I
mm,
can't just say, "Hey, play test this for me," and here's an NDA. If there's exchange of information, if they're seeing something, in a lot of cases, I have to put you under contract as well. That's Disney, and it's a whole different ball of wax than I'm used to. It probably was not the case back then, or at least we never asked.
okay.
And it may have been too. The other weird thing about that set is that if you were talking that it was a 1 year thing, that set was not 1 year. It was much faster. One,
Yeah.
because we are still chasing the movie. I think we wanted it to be in the Disney store at the end of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride when they updated everything to Jack Sparrow.
Wow.
Um, and so we had other dates than were our normal dates. And we probably only had a contract for a period of time. Like they're not evergreen contracts. So like you can't just make more Pirates of the Caribbean game now. You would have to sign an older contract. So it also had to do with what is the maximum amount of time we can get it on the shelf for the maximum amount of time that the contract exists for.
Okay.
So let's say it's a 2 year contract. Well, that means if I take a year to do it, it's only on the shelf for a year, and it's a year in which Pirates of the Caribbean keeps sailing further and further into the distance. So it may have been we wanted 18 months on the shelf. So now all of a sudden my 12-month design time is now only 6 or 8 or something like that.
Wow.
So there could be stuff like that that's in there. I don't recall. There was also a period of time too where I also thought the game was, this is kind of a weird thought process. It almost felt to me like it was a separate game. I was making it. It was Pirates of the Caribbean
Yeah.
using all the Pirate Caribbean rules. But there was also a part of my brain looking back at it that probably said, "Oh, no one will combine these with their other characters because why would you?" You know,
Hmm.
you're buying the Pirates of the Caribbean stuff to play with the Pirates of the Caribbean, good guys versus bad guys. I didn't think anybody would want to play, Pirates of the Caribbean ships against the Norse, or
Yeah.
against the Vikings or against the Jade thing. But now that I think about it afterwards, I'm like, that was probably stupid of me. I probably should have made sure it was balanced fully against every other set, and may not have. Again, it could have been time, it could have been thought process, it could have just been stuff going on.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, that multitude of answers really does explain it. And I think did mention that that set was, I don't know if rushed is the word, but it was timed differently where they had to put it out, and therefore there may have been less play testing in that set, especially like inter-set, because what you said about some people do prefer to kind of exclude it from the way they play, like not use the Caribbean set with the other stuff. I think it's fine. I think it's a really cool combination because a lot of the characters are kind of inspired by the movies, like Jack Hawkins and whatnot. Um, but yeah, I think there was less playtesting, or at least less playtesting integrated with the existing sets. So it kind of might work better on its own, but then once you integrate all the sets, some really crazy combos become evident. So cool. Um, and then the next one, kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, where their different factions had like kind of discounts or whatever. I'm thinking this is kind of just me thinking out loud, and you can correct me. I'm wondering if like maybe the English got a discount on cannon accuracy, and then maybe the Spanish to me seems like they would get a discount on cargo, if anything. They had a lot of high cargo ships early on. And then the pirates just seem kind of cheaper than the other factions. And then the French, I'm not really sure what discount they may have gotten.
Yeah, I mean, there was not a lot of things you can play with. There was only four mechanics. That may be correct. I don't recall. Like when I was saying it aloud, I'm like, I don't know if this is right. I know that the British had the I know the British had the guns. I remember that. I don't know if the Spanish had cargo cheapness. Like I said, I had an issue with that, so maybe they didn't. I thought they didn't do that. It could have been the French did.
Hmm.
I don't recall um, I actually don't recall the discounts. I do remember that the pirate ships were cheaper because in my thought process, all the pirate ships were used by
Yeah.
definition, and
Yeah.
so therefore they were getting their ships cheaper, but they weren't necessarily as good as the British in this way or the Spanish in another way. Could also have been the Spanish. One of them has much faster ships, and I don't remember what faction that was.
Yeah.
And I think that was the big. Now that I think about it, I think that was the big Dutch thing was they had fastest ships, best cargo, and they had all these cargo bonuses, and it just played the game was a different game. So
Yeah.
that was the big reason why that was removed. And I think maybe some of it got rebalanced into the Spanish, and some may have been rebalanced into the French. I don't recall. Like I said, the second set was really like a 1.5 set. We had all those playing pieces. We may have had 5 factions for initially designed, and
Okay.
I know we had the forts were initially designed.
Yep. That
So it
makes
was
sense.
just a matter of figuring out how that would fit into the next thing. Um, and again, early on, we said every set, needs to have something new to it. And so like, French and forts and then American and I think there's a new ship in the American set that I can't remember. But yeah, that's it. I don't think that
Yep.
there was any,
Awesome. Were the Dutch ever discussed to be brought into the game after they got scrapped from that Spanish main draft?
no,
Okay.
no. Here's the funny thing about the Dutch. This is really funny. Is that if you ask somebody who was a big sailing powerhouse, no one says the Dutch. And so, therefore, I mean, you may because you know your sailing history, and there may be some historians who know the
Yeah.
whole tulip thing. But the bottom line is, they were from a standpoint of who people knew. They
Yeah.
knew the English, the pirates, the Spanish, the French more so because of the French versus the English and the letters of marque, and then the Americans as the ones that hired pirates to fight the French and the English at various wars.
Yeah.
So when it's all said and done, that period of time, yeah, the Dutch were super important, but they were not a faction that was one that we felt people would, one, be interested in playing, and two, added anything different that we weren't covering with the big, if you will, big 5.
Yep. That's what
And
I was
when in
saying.
reality, really the big 3, if you include pirates, Spanish, and English, and the French and the Americans as add-ons. Adding the Dutch versus, let's say, the Americans, or adding the Dutch later after the Americans, just didn't feel like we were adding anything new to the game. There was no real reason for it from a standpoint of like that kind of pirate world building that we were doing. They were just yet another European. I mean, the cool thing about the French and the English and the Spanish is basically they fought wars since they basically became countries. So everybody knows something about their history together. But if you throw the Dutch in, no one's going to go, oh, yeah, that's right. Didn't they? What did they do? It's tulips. They're not going to see them as what they did. And especially, we thought, to be honest with you, I thought about it a little bit if we would have needed to do another historical setup, like if we needed to do India per se. And because I know the Dutch did a lot of stuff in that, or maybe even some of the South Pacific islands. But once we got the Corsairs and then the Jade Pirates in, that those factions, the Dutch really just they're not a power. They were not really anything. So
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. Next one is another faction question. This one from Captain Zone, one of the members of the community. He's wondering why the Curse were designed to be so much weaker than the other factions, and was it the fear of their gimmicky abilities being too strong?
I don't have an answer to that one because I don't remember them being weaker. I'm being told that in a question after whatever 15 years of gameplay.
Yeah.
So at the time, I think the big thing that, again, we were trying to create this faction that was going to be the IP holder, if you will, or at least the IP thing that we can put a feather in. And the bottom line was, in doing so, I may have undercosted their abilities.
Yeah, sometimes they're
My guess would have been if my guess would have been this have been it maybe wasn't rectified at the time only because we didn't see it, as in a long-term thing. Again, they were a created faction that doesn't exist. So I had no balance. I didn't know what their strengths or weaknesses were, and it sounds like what I ended up doing was making a decision that said these guys are really wacky. And so therefore we need to make sure that they're so wacky they ruin the core balance of the game. And I may have underpowered them or undervalued them or overvalued them. It's probably less than they're underpowered than they're overvalued. If you were looking at your thing.
Definitely.
And I think that's probably where I may have made a mistake in just saying these guys are so wacky, they're out of the range of where we normally place abilities. And so I'm going to make them a little bit higher on that scale. And then when it was all said and done, those abilities weren't as wacky as they ended up being in gameplay. But that's a learned lesson that maybe over time we would have balanced that a little bit better, and some of their early ships may have been too powerful, or maybe we would have done something that said, when you're playing the Cursed, you get 10 more points than everybody else just to make up for that, to try to fix it. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas against the thing.
Yeah, no worries. Awesome.
Yeah.
Next one is another faction question. Do you know if the mercenary faction flag was based on anything historical? Try to get you a picture.
I'm going to say I don't recall. My guess is that our team created it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what it looks like. That white, the white flag.
Yeah, it's like the gray.
Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know if it was if it was something that they made up. I think again, probably just trying to figure out a color that's going to stand out on the board.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like weird stuff that goes into an approach like that.
Yeah, that's a good point because there's not much gray in the other. There's a lot of like white, red, blue, and a lot of the other flags. That actually
a lot of bright, sharp colors.
Yeah, not as much pastel or neutral. Yeah, interesting. Makes me wonder if Seth Johnson or Jason Michael had some role in it, but you can always ask them.
They would not have had it. They would not have had an art role in that. No,
okay.
Neither one of those guys. They would. Jason, I think probably by this time may not have been with the company anymore. Seth obviously was on HeroClix, so he wouldn't really had much say in any of that. That would have been definitely Shane's team.
Yeah.
And whoever they hired to do the art for that. So
nice. Yeah, I know we talked about the next one at our game, but do you have a crew character in the game?
I do. I was looking for him, but I couldn't find him.
I think
Yeah.
it's Marcus, right? Marcus Miguel Antonio. I'll send you a
Yeah,
screenshot.
that's him. Yeah,
Yep,
that's him.
awesome.
I was trying to see if I could get a picture of him, or the card of him. I mean, I do. It's probably down. I have all my cards in binders, and so when I, bring them upstairs, it's like, oh my god, this is the heaviest thing ever. I have my Pirates of the Caribbean at work. Yeah, that's me.
Yep. Nice. Nice.
There's more names of people than there are pictures of people.
Yeah,
Uh,
like art
because
portraits.
I
Yep.
I needed names, and names are the hardest thing because you don't want them all to be like Bob Johnson, Steve Johnson, John Johnson. You don't want that. You want them to be of the period of time and everything like that. So like if I needed names, I know my daughters are in there. I think there's somebody
Oh,
named.
really? Huh.
Yeah, I
Interesting.
think we played her. And she was in the set the other day when we were playing it.
Really?
It's just a combination of their names. Somebody, I think their last name is Lee, probably Ruth Lee or Lee Ruth or something like
Oh,
that.
yeah, there is a
That's
Ruth Lee from Revolution.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's my daughter's middle names.
Huh.
And then
Interesting.
I have one of my uncle died while I was making this game, so I asked his daughters if I can put him in. If there's somebody named he's probably on the Spanish. For his name is um, Dominic Frida.
Oh,
Is there?
yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's my uncle. That's my
Wow.
uncle who died while I was making the game. So
Wow.
I put him in. Most like I'll just look around and I'll go. There's probably Kelly's in there. I don't know if there's anybody named Seth, but there's probably somebody named Johnson in there. Um,
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
think Shane is in there. I
Yeah,
know. I
Shane
don't know if there's
Heartless.
anybody Ethan in there is in there.
Yeah,
And then, like a
Ethan.
lot of times I would ask somebody, I go, "Hey, can I use your name?" And they're like, "No, don't use my name. Use my dad's name." And so I would do that. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah, there is an Ethan the Far Seeker actually from the
yeah, that's
from the
probably
Frozen
Ethan.
North
Yeah,
set. So, and then I know Tiffany made it in, and Shannon Dorr as well. So,
yeah,
yeah, nice. Yeah, it's really fun to have that because then you could all, I mean, if there was like a WizKids powwow, you could all play as like you're the admiral of your fleet with that crew character and have like a 10-player game with everybody playing. That'd be wild. Do you have a favorite set overall?
uh well, emotionally, I'd say the Pirates of the Caribbean set because it was sold in Disney, and that was my first work with Disney, and that was like changed my life because now that's all I do is work with Disney.
Yeah.
Um, so there's that, but I would say I think the one that I'm actually kind of secretly proud of was really the concept of doing the Barbary Coast
Nice.
because again that was something that no one expected, and it was historically rife, and it just had a lot of ability to do a different take, like I said, start to create a world of pirates. So when creating that, it just was like there was a lot of research I did because again, if you look at sailing pirates from whatever, you're always going to get the Caribbean, the Spanish Main, and then you'll get every once in a while there'll be a pirate who went, wait a second, this is getting too crowded. Look at that giant coast of Africa and look at all that gold. So I'm going to head over there and raid ships along that coast. Meanwhile, the Europeans, the Spanish and the French are like, hey, totally free land. We're just going to go up and down the aisles here, and then all of a sudden there's pirates. And the fact that there was native pirates, from the countries along there, it just was like kind of the eye opening to how I look at games now, which is from that immersion, storytelling, new world approach, to the fact that I was still using history. We're still following the Jordan mandate of like, alternate history kind of feel. And it was true to history. I think it shocked people. It may not even have been the best selling set. I have no idea. But to me, that was the one that kind of put it all into a different kind of perspective. I
Yeah.
mean, and it gave me that's the one that I did huge amounts of research to do. That's the one that taught me, be right, not be, quick and throw stuff in there that's not true. And so the whole span of that product was like, it was opening up new rules. And like I said, when I did it, I also pitched the Chinese or the
Jade
Jade,
Rebels.
the Jade Rebellion, and it just segued into doing the research there. And like that kind of combo, those two sets, I guess, together is like where I discovered, like, how do you make a living world? How do you tell cool stories? How do you introduce people who don't know anything about this into the deep dive into your game, in which you are basically, feeding them, every pirate trope under the sun. Now you have pirates who do not fit the trope,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
so it was, to me, those are the those sets together, to me, are really kind of like, my
Iconic.
that, just from a game design standpoint, where I ended up, where I grew from. I look at those two sets as the my first foray into all the things that I now do. Now I preach, I guess. So
Yeah. I love that answer, man. That's really cool. And they are two of the best sets that were ever made for the game. So
oh, that's
that's
cool.
amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
they were, in fact, internally, like I said, I have to sell things internally first.
Yeah.
And they were hard things to sell internally.
Yeah, they're definitely pretty special, man. And South China Seas is like definitely, I mean, I think it might help a little bit that it's pretty scarce, so it's expensive, but a lot of people have a kind of a romantic view of South China Seas because it's a really balanced set and it's just got such a cool color palette and such a unique like theme because a lot of the game took place in the Atlantic and kind of like the adjacent seas to the Atlantic, like Caribbean and then Mediterranean, but then you go kind of more exotic for a lot of Americans go over to the South China Sea and opens up a whole new ocean really. Because I guess, yeah, that was kind of the first set that was based in the Pacific or adjacent to the Pacific. So
Yeah.
really cool. I remember getting my first pack of Barbary Coast. I think probably from Target back in 2005. And then I remember I was with my dad and sister. We went to like a Little Caesars. I remember opening it. I got two Barbary Corsair galleys, and I was like, "Damn, this game like it's just great." So, and they're both really good ships too. I got Algiers and Griffin, which are both good. So amazing. Do you have
Very cool.
a yeah? Do you have a favorite faction or nationality?
Um, I don't know. I think in my mind, I kind of shift between where the sets were and where they're coming out. Like in the first set, obviously, it was Pirates. I really loved them. Um, and the second set, I would probably still stay with Pirates.
Yeah.
uh, and then, but as it went on, like, I really like what I did with the American set, because the Americans, because I really, like I said, I really love that period of time in American history, especially with War of 1812, where, the U.S. has no navy and they basically recruit a bunch of pirates and pay them a bunch of money to fight on their side. And that just seemed like so fitting to this game, and this mindset of, you know, um, they were not the naval powerhouses the other factions were, and then the pirates were like, at the end of the age of sail, and they're just like, dude, we'll take your cash, we'll fight. And it just felt to me that I just felt that was a cool, like, American pirate combo thing was really cool to me. um and after that, I think I'm almost always going to side with the faction that was new. And so overall, like, when you asked me to play, my first thought was, I want to play the Jade, right? I think I said that to you, Jade Rebellion, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't know if I have all the, enough to blah blah blah. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'll go make my own. And I ended up making a Spanish fleet,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
was like, you know, I dig these, and I start reading the story, and I'm like, oh, that's right. These guys work with these guys, and so. I'm gonna wimp out on this answer and just go. There are no factions I don't like.
Sure. Yeah, that's totally fair.
Maybe I don't play the British as much as anybody else, because
Yeah.
mostly a lot of people pick the British, so I ended
Okay.
up not playing the British. But I've played everybody, because when you are showing somebody the game, they all want to play pirates, so that's usually off limits to me. So I play everybody else. So
Yeah, that's fair. Nice. Yeah, I like that. I like all the factions too. It's just a kind of a flavor of the month for me. The English are my favorite, but then I usually have like a second or third favorite that changes by the season or the year and things like that. So awesome. Do you have a favorite game piece, like a specific crew or ship or unique treasure?
Well, you know what? It's funny that you say that because I didn't. I don't. I mean, I couldn't even remember half of them, but I really liked the fiction that I wrote for Tiffany.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I love
So
that.
she was pretty cool. I don't. I mean, I most likely would probably be closer to like the characters than the ships themselves, because the ships are the generic pieces of the game, if you will, even if they have cool personality. Um, I was trying to find there's a ship ability that maybe I cut it when people got so mad about it. I thought it was in the first set, but I can't find it right now. That I ended up never using again because people hated it so much. Um, but I can't find it. So I mean, everything
Hmm.
else I've seen be used again or I used again. So maybe that's not it. I like from a physical standpoint, like I said, the ones that we did towards the end, the ships that like were you really interestingly unique. Like I like the catamarans that we did that you played when we played. I like those from a just a gameplay, just a game mechanic play model of like the catamaran side, the blade is a can be removed, and
Yep.
and before you lose everything. I think that was like a really cool way to add a cool new ship with a cool new mechanic that gives them a unique feel. That was obviously something that I tried to do with all the ships, but I thought that one really captured it really well.
Yeah.
Same thing with like the scorpion and other stuff like that. I just think that those kind of later ships that used all the mechanics in the table in new and unique ways are my favorite. From a very specific playing piece, I don't. Um, there was a female character that I was really proud of writing. I just don't remember who it is at this point,
Yeah.
but when it's all said and done, I'm sorry, I made a lot of characters and I am not as steeped as you are in it. I mean, the fact that you were just ripping off names like that a second ago was freaking me out. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I could barely remember people's names. So,
Yeah, no, that's
so
fine. I'll feel like that someday if I have another hiatus or whatever. But yeah, I've been consistent with it for, I guess, 12 years now. So there hasn't been like a lapse in my fandom, I guess, since like 2010 or before. So, but yeah, for female characters, definitely there's like iconic ones like Calico Cat and Crimson Angel that reoccurred throughout the sets. I don't know if it's either of those, but those
Oh,
are.
Crimson Angel, that's her. I
Oh,
like her.
really? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, she's got a bunch of versions for sure. So. Yeah, she's all over the place. Awesome. Do you have a favorite ship type, like a five master or the catamaran or the scorpion?
The catamaran is like really cool. That when I saw it played, and I was like, man, why did he pick those? And I was watching you play it, and I'm like, yeah, I really like that. I also like that the schooner swinging on its tail end. I think that that's pretty cool.
Yep,
I mean, when it's all said and done, there's nothing in the game that is as cool as a big
agreed.
five masted.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, you can love any other kind of ship. Maybe they're slow, maybe they're ponderous. I don't, but they just there is not a bad looking one. That is the other coolest thing. That is a total shout out to Shane and his team. They are the coolest looking figures you can put on there. I mean, on
Yep,
my shelf right over there, I have a five master and a small one like a rare pack kind
yep,
of thing, and a sea monster
yep.
tentacles thing. Those are cool too, but they're cool in
Yeah,
a different way.
yeah,
But yeah, there's nothing cooler in the game than a five-masted ship.
yep.
Although that
I agree.
ten-masted Jade faction ship
Yeah, the
is
Bauchuan.
pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty cool too.
yeah, yeah. I agree about the five masters. Those are my favorites too. This one's kind of fun. I think a little out of left field. Do you have a favorite terrain type, like
Terrain type.
fog bank,
Yeah,
whirlpool,
I liked
iceberg?
when we were playing them the other day. I like the whirlpool mechanic. I like um It's funny because I actually like the shoals in the Sargasso Sea, or not the shoals. What's the one that
Reef,
is that the one?
probably
What
reef.
the reef? I like those from a gameplay mechanic because either you're forced to go around it or you make the effort to go through it, and depending on your ship. I like the ship specific terrains.
Yep.
Um, I also like the I don't know if you call them terrains. What was the one from in the Norse? The ice.
Yeah, icebergs. Yeah.
I like the icebergs too, because I like that kind of that people complain all the time that they hate like randomization, and there's some randomization that I actually like, and I like the iceberg mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, nice. I got kind of a random new question segue, kind of relating back to what we talked about at the beginning with when you were talking with James Ernest about low rolls should be bad. I noticed the whirlpool rolls have on a result of 4 through 6, you have to eliminate a master segment or treasure or crew. I don't know if that was kind of a random thing that happened. They came out in like the Ocean's Edge set, I think. And whirlpools are basically bad on high rolls. I didn't know if there's any story there or some other reason why you're not thinking
No,
about
I don't remember that. I don't
it. Okay.
recall why that would have been the case.
Yeah, no worries.
Um, I'm just trying to think of it. No, I don't. It's
Yeah,
probably a
that's fine.
mistake on my part. Probably something that I didn't catch when we were doing it.
Yeah, no worries. Do you have a favorite rule or game mechanic?
I'll tell you, the genius of this game, in my opinion, from day one, is that the short and long movement using the edge of the card is like genius.
Yep.
That I think that was Seliker and team, or maybe it wasn't. I don't recall. But the fact that everything is so compact and playable, I kind of wish that there was a way to snap the pieces back into the card easily. That's a whole different ball of wax. But yeah, that is to me again the core simplicity of the game is so elegant. It's a very elegant game, and that the fact that I was able to take the elegant game and move it along and add to it and play within its parameters is like we're still talking about it, so it's really cool. It's been a
Hmm.
very long chat. You're going to break this up into like 5 podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so from my standpoint, I look at it, to me that's the coolest thing. I also really like I like the variety that crew gives a ship. And so you can play a ship plain, no crew, and it has an ability, and that's pretty fun. And then you can play a ship with every time you add a different crew to it, it is almost as if you have an entirely different ship. And that is, I think, a really cool element of the game from a mechanics standpoint of, you know, you have basically a plain piece of bread, and the mechanic put some mayo or some peanut butter on it, whatever you prefer. And then, the crew member now starts to add jelly or, a piece of ham. And all of a sudden you started with something plain. And by the time you're done customizing it, it is this new thing that maybe I've never seen before. You're using a character that does this, they're using a character that does that. Wow, that is pretty cool. That's a cool combination of things with this ship and your other ships. And the fact that that is like constantly available every time you play the game, um, that is like, game design nirvana, from my point of view. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a really fun aspect of it. So, and yeah, you can transform ships that are normally not very good into like at least playable, if not really good. So, yeah, it's pretty fun. The customizability is just off the charts. Like you could play hundreds or thousands of games and never use the same fleet twice if you wanted. So, yeah, it's really great. Do you have any least favorite sets or game pieces from the game, or at least something that may not have played as well as you thought it would?
um, I think we talked about that with the schooners. I think we would have done something different if we would have seen what that overlap was going to do for mechanically.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. From a pure on game mechanics standpoint, no, I think we talked about, like, the end game treasure thing probably could have been cleaner. Even in the early stages. There's really nothing that I look at and say, kind of wish that that was different. Um, I think, I we ended up doing the keyword thing. That's always a big game design fight. You know,
Yeah.
from a game designer thing is because keywords by necessity mean you have to have another sheet on the table that tells you the rules.
Yeah.
But we also had, like, as you can tell, we had like literally, 100. I think it was in my spreadsheet. I had the character count of things. So if I made a mechanic, it had to be like, I'm going to say this because I seem to think in my mind it can't be like longer than 137 characters.
Hmm.
And people forget that space is a character. So you would have to, make sure that if it was, there's this, if it's a 3-letter word, it's technically 4 characters, because and some capital letters, if it's an M or a W, sometimes take up a character space and a half. So I had to play with that. And so there may be some, so in the long run, keywords were the only way to make it make sense. But again, that adds a complexity to the game that, for the game, what it is maybe you're not right, but at the same time it maybe is. So
Yeah. Interesting.
I don't know. So yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything that I tell you that I'm like, oh my god, I don't want this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't want this in it, or anything like that. I'm trying to, God, I wish I could
Nice.
find it for you.
Nice.
um but yeah, that was, I think,
Yeah. Awesome. Did you have any ideas that never made it into the game that you wanted to see?
ideas that never made it into the game. I wanted to do, there was a period of time where we were toying with the idea of like leaving crew behind on an island to do things.
Hmm.
Um, if you remember,
Separate from the marine ability, I guess.
yeah, the marine was like a first salvo in that, and
Okay.
it didn't work real well.
Mm-hmm.
um, but that was the kind of concept of like something that you could have. The problem with it is, and this is basically goes all the way back to the beginning, opening statements that I have, and that is, we created a game as a team that was simple and elegant, and its through line was logical, and people played it. And every time we came up with another thing and to try to extend that, we found that in the big picture, it just started to it didn't break it down. It's just people didn't want to play it. Forts are that way. People just don't want to play forts. They get it, they understand it, it's logical to them, but it takes a little bit away from the through line of the game. Marines did the same kind of thing, and I kept trying to say, like, I guess in the big picture, the thing that I would have tried to push the game towards, now I'm looking at it from a now standpoint as opposed to a then standpoint, just so you understand. I didn't think about this then at the time, but it would have been interesting to try to push it into kind of almost a legacy game thing, where you're trying to create a kingdom, or if you're working for one of the governments, create a military, ongoing military thing. So there may have been something where the forts are useful for long-term building and security, and then you can build new ships during gameplay or in between sessions or something. Maybe that would have been a direction to go, and that would have been a direction that would have seriously supported IP development. But I never would have thought of it at the time. That's only something that I would have thought about it, with years of time looking back and going, where could this have gone? So I don't really have a thing that I feel like. I mean, you could probably put forts and marines into things that I don't think worked very well,
Hmm.
and then the other part into the kind of the thing that I think maybe we should have been thinking about. But the forts and the marines were kind of a first salvo in that direction, and like I said, they just never captured anybody's zeitgeist. People wanted ships, they wanted to sail around, they didn't want to feel like they needed to be worried about what's going on in an island. So.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to hear about, like, the difference back then in, like, the player base versus now, because forts can be pretty strategically advantageous to use in a variety of ways. And I've used them to pretty good effect quite a number of times over the past few years. So it's interesting to hear. Maybe they weren't as well received when those sets, when Crimson Coast and Revolution came out, but long term, they're very
Yeah, and that may
viable.
be the case. Same thing with Marines. It could have been that that there's a very cool um uh could be that I don't think we should never have tried them. So I don't want to make it sound like we made a mistake and it was horrible. I just don't think that there was that maybe they weren't given the right um they were that we could have found, maybe over time could have found a better solution to that. Um
Yeah.
or a different solution, or made them tweak them in a certain way, but it all seemed very logical at the time. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Nice. Yeah, I think this might be a decent stopping point for some of the questions we've gone over now, even if we continue tonight. So we wrap up each podcast with a question of the day. So I'll ask one, and you can ask one. So my question for the audience so far would be, what's your favorite like question and answer back and forth so far from this epic discussion? So you can ask a new one. I know you talked about the flags, the pennant flags, backwards or forwards, but you can ask a new one as well if you'd like.
My question would be like what in I I guess it's, you kind of tipped it off with your like of forts. Was there something that somebody, when they first learned the game, didn't like, and now like not, they don't have to love it, but they like it or appreciate it? Because to be perfectly honest, I stopped working on the game, whatever it was, over 10 years ago now, maybe 12 years ago. For me to find out that the game still lives at the level that it's living is like astonishing. I think I told you that, Ben, when we first met.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. I can't even understand it. And so I'm curious, just as a game designer, was there something I put into the game that you go, this is like really cool? Like, maybe I didn't like it at the beginning, but now I've learned to like it a lot. And so at that point, then that I would be like, hey, that's pretty cool. I can maybe figure out why that was in the game at the beginning and why it's not. Like, I just explained to you forts, and you said, no, I use forts all the time. They're really cool. And I'm like, oh, that's so funny, because if you asked me, which you did, I would have said forts were a big disappointment.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of where I guess it's less of a question and more of a statement, and more of a, hey, everybody, keep playing and having fun, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say mine is definitely, I can think of a quick answer where some of the Pokéships, some of the ships with moving parts really have grown on me. And even the sea creatures too, because when they came out, I was kind of, even as a kid, I was kind of more into the historical Age of Sail stuff and whatnot. So when some of that stuff came out, I was kind of like, didn't like the direction, but now as I've gotten older, I appreciate, mostly for gameplay, I appreciate like the variety of ship types introduced, and the switchblades are like really fun. They can get really crazy with all the boarding parties, and some of the hoists from the last set in Savage Shores can get really, really great too and interesting. So that's one of the things that's grown on me over the years. So awesome. Thanks again for coming on, Mike. This was amazing. So
no
I'd love to
problem.
hear.
No problem. We could do it again when more questions come up.
Oh yeah.
Don't hesitate. Now
Oh,
that we're
absolutely.
in contact, we can do this anytime.
Yep.
Maybe not 4.5 hours,
Yeah.
but we can do this anytime.
Yeah, this is awesome.
All right, that concludes this part of the interview with the amazing Pirates game designer Mike Mulvihill. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, whether that's a comment on YouTube, follow-up questions in the thread at Pirates with Ben, or commentary on Discord or Facebook. Make sure to like and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes. There are links in the description for this episode where you can find some of the links and resources I used, and there's also an affiliate link to buy Pirate CSG items on eBay. Consider using that link as a way to support all my efforts to keep the game alive and hopefully even revive it as well. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.